that had ruled the stars for 11,000 years. They were old when humanity still lived in caves. They were powerful when humans first discovered fire, and they were arrogant in ways that only ancient species could be. When they built something, they built it perfect. Their ships were works of art. Their weapons were elegant. Their technology was so advanced that younger species could not even understand how it worked. But they had one great weakness. They could not stand imperfection. When a ship grew old, when its systems began to slow, when its hull showed the first signs of wear, they did not repair it. They abandoned it. They left it to drift in the cold darkness of space, forgotten and alone. Across the galaxy, there were graveyards filled with ships. Thousands of vessels, each one more advanced than anything most species could build, left to corrode and die. No one touched these graveyards. That had made it clear. Any species that took their abandoned technology would face punishment. The punishment was extinction, so the ships drifted, century after century, waiting for nothing. Captain did not know about this rule. Humanity had discovered faster than light travel only 40 years ago. They were bobbies in a galaxy of ancient giants. They had stumbled out of their solar system like children wandering into a dark forest, not knowing what dangers waited for them. Stood on the bridge of her ship, the persistent Dream. It was a small vessel designed for salvage work. Her crew of 30 had spent years collecting debris and abandoned equipment from the edges of known space. They sold what they found to keep their families fed. It was hard work, but honest. Today, they had found something different. The ship on her was enormous. 3 kilometers long, it drifted in the darkness like a sleeping giant. Its hull was covered in scars from ancient battles. Holes marked where weapons had once been. Dark patches showed where the metal had begun to decay. It looked dead. It looked worthless. But saw something else. Her chief engineer stood beside her. He was a large man with gentle hands, the kind of person who could fix anything if given enough time. He studied the readings on his tablet and shook his head slowly. "The hull integrity is at 14%, he said. "The weapons are gone, navigation is gone, life support is gone, the computer systems are completely dead." He looked up at, "Captain, this thing is a corpse." "What about the reactor?" asked. Paused, he checked his readings again. His eyes grew wide. "The reactor is intact," he said quietly. "It is cold, but intact. That should not be possible. A reactor that old should have decayed centuries ago." Pressed her hand against the cold glass of the viewport. She stared at the massive ship, this forgotten giant, and she thought about Earth. She thought about the colonies. She thought about the war. The collective had attacked humanity 3 years ago. No one knew why. Perhaps they saw humans as easy prey. Perhaps they simply enjoyed killing. Whatever the reason, they had already destroyed 4 human colonies. Billions of people gone in nuclear fire. Earth's navy had tried to fight back. They had lost. Badly. Humanity now had only 12 warships left to protect 47 billion people across 19 star systems. The Galactic Council refused to help. They said humanity was too young, too primitive, too unimportant. Humanity was alone, and humanity was dying. Had a choice to make. She could follow the rules, leave this dead ship alone, and return home empty-handed. Or she could take a chance. She could drag this corpse back to human space and see if there was anything inside worth saving. She thought about her daughter, living on a colony near the front lines. She thought about the other children, the other families, all waiting for death to come from the stars. "Begin docking procedures," she ordered. "We are taking this ship home." Stared at her. "We do not know what species built this vessel. We do not know why they abandoned it. We could be starting a war we cannot win." "We are already in a war we cannot win," replied. "This ship is 3 kilometers of metal and technology. Even if most of it is useless, there might be something inside that can help us, something that can save lives." She turned to face her crew. "I am not asking anyone to join me. This is dangerous. If any of you want to leave, I will not judge you." No one moved. Finally, her pilot spoke. His name was James, a young man from the asteroid mines of Jupiter. "Captain, where you go, we go. That is what family does." Felt tears in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. "Then let us get to work." The docking process took 6 hours. The ancient ship had no power, so they had to cut their way inside. The airlock doors were frozen solid after centuries in the void. The corridors beyond were dark and silent, filled with floating debris and the cold of deep space. Was the first to step inside. Her boots touched the deck of the alien vessel, and she felt history beneath her feet. How many battles had this ship fought? How many stars had it visited? What stories were hidden in its silent halls? They found the first body an hour later. It recognized the species from the few images humanity had access to. With multiple limbs and compound eyes, the creature had died at its post. Its body was frozen and preserved, a statue made of flesh and chitin. Examined it carefully. "This ship is," he said. "They are one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. If they learn we took one of their vessels." "They abandoned it," said firmly. "They threw it away like garbage. If they wanted it, they would have kept it." They do not think like that. They will see this as theft, as insult. Looked at the frozen alien, this ancient soldier who had died so long ago. She wondered if it had family. She wondered if anyone had mourned its death. "Then they should not have left it to corrode," she said. "Whatever this ship was, whatever it meant to them, they gave up on it. We will not." The journey home took 3 months. The persistent dream was not designed to tow something so massive. Their engines strained. Their fuel ran low. Twice, they almost lost the derelict to the gravity of passing stars. But they made it. When they finally reached Mars, when the orbital stations came into view, sent a message to Earth Command. She told them what she had found. She told them what she believed it could become. The response came within the hour. It was from the United Earth Council itself. 3 words that would change human history forever. "Bring it in." Smiled. The dead ship behind her had no name anymore. They had called it the Throne of Silences once, but that name belonged to the past. Whatever this vessel became, it would be something new. Something human. Mars Orbital Shipyard 7 was the largest construction facility humanity had ever built. It could hold 50 warships at once. It had been designed to build the future of human space exploration. Now it held only one ship, and that ship was dead. The dreadnought hung in the center of the shipyard like a corpse on a table. Spotlights illuminated its hull. Scaffolding wrapped around it like bandages on a wounded giant. And everywhere, humans crawled across its surface, trying to understand what they had found. Stood in the main engineering bay, surrounded by equipment he did not recognize. They had built machines that seemed to operate on magic, power conduits that had no visible connections, computer systems that used crystals instead of circuits, weapons that drew energy from sources he could not identify. 3 months of study had taught him one thing: humanity could not rebuild this ship, not the way they had built it. The council meeting was held in a conference room overlooking the shipyard. Through the windows, the dreadnought loomed, a constant reminder of their task. Around the table sat the most powerful people in human space: presidents, generals, scientists, all of them looking at, waiting for answers. "We cannot restore it to original specifications," admitted. "The used materials we cannot create. Their weapons require power systems we do not understand. Their computers operate on principles that our best scientists cannot explain." Senator, a woman known for her sharp tongue and sharper mind, leaned forward. "Then why are we wasting resources on this project? If we cannot fix it, it is useless." "I did not say we cannot fix it," replied. "I said we cannot make it." He stood and walked to the window, gesturing at the massive ship beyond. "The built for perfection. When something was not perfect, they threw it away. That is why this ship was abandoned. Its hull began to corrode. Its systems began to age. It was trash. He turned back to face the council. But humans do not build for perfection. We build for survival. We build things that break and can be fixed, things that fail and can be replaced, things that are ugly and crude but keep working when everything else has stopped. General, commander of Earth's remaining fleet, spoke up. What exactly are you proposing? Pulled up a holographic display. It showed the dreadnought but different, changed, transformed. We strip out everything we cannot maintain. The alloys that are corroding we replace with human steel. Their elegant weapons that we cannot repair we replace with our own. Missiles, point defense cannons, crude by galactic standards, but we can build them, we can fix them, and we can reload them. The display showed more changes. Human engines attached to the alien frame. Human computer systems wired into alien power conduits. Human life support modules filling spaces where systems had failed. We keep the reactor, continued. It is the one thing we cannot improve on. The reactor produces more power than anything we could build in 100 years, but we wrap it in our own safety systems, our own redundancies. If something goes wrong, we have backup plans, and backup plans for the backup plans. Senator studied the display. You want to build a hybrid, part human. Yes, it will not be elegant, it will not be perfect, but it will work. And more importantly, it will keep working. When systems fail, our crews can fix them with tools they understand. When weapons run out, we can reload them with ammunition we can manufacture. When the hull is damaged, we can patch it with steel we can forge. The room was silent. Then General began to laugh, not mockingly but with genuine delight. You want to build a ship that is too stubborn to die, he said. That is the most human thing I have ever heard. The vote was unanimous. Project Resurrection began the next day. For 3 years, 18,000 workers lived aboard the shipyard. Engineers and technicians worked in shifts around the clock. Laborers hauled materials and welded plates. Scientists studied every piece of technology they could salvage, learning what they could, adapting what they understood. They found wonders inside the ship. Medical technology that could heal wounds in seconds. Shield generators that could stop nuclear weapons. Sensor systems that could detect ships across entire solar systems. They found horrors too. The bodies of crew members, frozen at their posts. Evidence of the battle that had crippled the ship thousands of years ago. Rooms that had been sealed forever, containing secrets that humanity might never understand. But mostly, they found possibility. Visited the shipyard often. She was no longer a salvage captain. The council had promoted her, given her a new rank and new responsibilities. But she still felt like that woman on the persistent dream, staring at a dead giant and seeing something more. She watched as human steel replaced alien alloys. She watched as the size of buildings were mounted on the hull. She watched as missile batteries were installed, each one holding thousands of warheads. She watched as point defense systems were added, designed by engineers who thought in terms of video games and wanted weapons that could fire faster than any enemy could dodge. The ship changed. Day by day, month by month, it transformed from a corpse into something new, something that had never existed before. On the day the transformation was complete, stood on the new bridge. It was a strange place. Half of it was architecture, smooth curves and alien displays. Half was human technology, cables and monitors and control panels salvaged from a dozen different ships. It was ugly. It was chaotic. It was perfect. She needs a new name, said standing beside her. They called her the Throne of Silences, but that ship is dead now. Thought for a long moment. She thought about the 3 years of work, the 18,000 people who had given everything to build this vessel, the hope that it carried, the desperate hope of a species fighting for survival. Perseverance, she said finally. We will call her Perseverance. Smiled, that is a good name. a human name. Outside the viewport, the Perseverance waited. She was patched and covered in weapons that looked crude next to her elegant frame. She was a hybrid, a monster, a ship that should not exist. But she was alive. And soon, she would show the galaxy what humanity could do with the things that others threw away. The Galactic Council met in a station at the center of known space. It was a place of ancient power, where the oldest species gathered to discuss the fate of younger worlds. Thousands of representatives filled the great chamber, each one speaking for billions of lives. Humanity had no seat at this table. They were too young, too primitive, too unimportant, but they were allowed to watch, to listen, to learn their place in the universe. Ambassador of the hegemony stood at the center of the chamber. He was tall for his species, with polished chitin that gleamed under the lights. His compound eyes reflected 1,000 images of the gathered representatives. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 11,000 years of dominion. "The humans have committed an act of theft," he announced. "They have taken a vessel from our sacred graveyards, a ship that belonged to the hegemony. This is a crime that cannot be ignored." Murmurs filled the chamber. Representatives turned to look at the human observers, their expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. Ambassador Sarah stood in the observation gallery, her hands steady despite her racing heart. She had been chosen for this mission because she did not flinch, because she could stand before ancient powers and speak the truth without fear. "The vessel was abandoned," she said calmly. "It had drifted in space for over 2,000 years. By the laws of salvage recognized across the galaxy, abandoned property belongs to whoever claims it." Made a sound like grinding stones, the equivalent of laughter. "Human laws do not apply to property. Nothing is ever truly abandoned. We simply choose not to use it. The ship remains ours by right of creation." "Then come and take it back," replied. The chamber went silent. No one spoke to them that way. No one challenged them so directly. Studied the human ambassador with his 1,000-faceted eyes. "You do not understand what you have done. You have taken our garbage and wrapped it in your primitive metals. You have mounted chemical weapons on a vessel designed for plasma lances. You have replaced our quantum computing cores with electrical circuits." He made that grinding sound again. "You have built a monument to your own inadequacy. The ship you call Perseverance is an insult to engineering. It would be laughable if it were not so pathetic." Representatives from other species joined the mockery. They who valued beauty above all else called the Perseverance an abomination. They who calculated everything in terms of efficiency called it a waste of resources. The ancient, who had seen empires rise and fall, simply observed that young species often made foolish mistakes. Listened to all of it. She did not argue, she did not defend. She simply waited until the laughter faded. "You may be right," she said finally. "Our ship may be crude, our weapons may be primitive, our technology may be laughable by your standards." She paused. "But it works. And when the come for our colonies, when our people are dying, when we have nothing else left, we will fight with what we have. We will fight with the things you threw away." She turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the laughter continued, but some representatives noticed something strange. The human ambassador was smiling. In the war rooms of the collective, there was no laughter. War Master studied the intelligence reports carefully. There were predators, evolved from pack hunters on a world of endless darkness. They saw the universe in terms of prey and threat. Everything that was not was either food or competition. Humanity was supposed to be food. The invasion had begun 3 years ago. They had expected it to be easy. Humans were young, weak, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Their ships were slow and fragile. Their weapons were primitive. It should have been like hunting animals. Instead, the humans had fought back. They had lost, certainly. 4 colonies destroyed, billions dead. But they had not surrendered. They had not fled. They had kept fighting even when victory was impossible. And now they had built this ship. Studied the images of the Perseverance. It was ugly, yes, a patchwork monster of alien and human technology, but his hunter's instincts saw beyond the surface. He saw the massive reactor, capable of powering weapons that could crack planets. He saw the crude but devastating at close range. He saw the missile batteries, thousands of warheads ready to launch. He saw a wounded animal that had grown teeth. "The other species mock this vessel," his second said. "They say it is worthless." "The other species are fools," replied. "They have forgotten what it means to fight for survival. They have forgotten what desperation can create." He turned to his war council. "We must accelerate our plans. The humans must be destroyed before they can build more ships like this one." "How soon?" Bared his fangs in what passed for a smile among the "Immediately. Target their largest colony near the front lines. 442B. 3 million humans. We will burn them all and show the galaxy that desperation is not enough to save the weak." The order went out that night. 600 warships began moving toward human space, the largest fleet they had ever assembled against a single target. They expected an easy victory. The humans had only 12 ships left in their entire navy. Even if they sent all of them to defend 442B, that would outnumber them 50-1. What they did not expect was the Perseverance. Back on Earth, received the intelligence report. 600 enemy ships, 1 human colony, 3 million lives hanging in the balance. She read the numbers again. Then she read them a third time. The math was simple. Humanity could not defend 442B, not with their entire fleet and certainly not with a single ship. But had never been good at math. "How long until the Perseverance is ready for combat trials?" she asked. Looked up from his console. "The ship is functional, but we have not finished testing all systems. We do not know if the weapons will work properly. We do not know if the shields will hold. We do not even know if the reactor will remain stable under combat conditions." "How long?" repeated. Sighed. "She could launch in 6 hours, but we are not ready. We need more time." The people of 442B do not have more time. Stood and walked to the window. Outside, the Perseverance hung in orbit, her patchwork hull gleaming in the light of the sun. "We built that ship for moments like this. We built her to fight when fighting seemed impossible. We built her to survive when survival seemed hopeless." She turned to face. "If we wait until we are ready, we will never be ready. There will always be another test, another adjustment, another reason to delay. Meanwhile, 3 million people will die." Was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I will begin launch preparations." "No," said. "We will begin launch preparations. Together, the way we have done everything since we found that ship." 6 hours later, the Perseverance left Earth orbit. She moved slowly at first, her hybrid engines struggling to push her massive frame. She was not graceful. She was not elegant. But she was heading toward the enemy, and she would not stop until the battle was over. One way or another. The colony on 442B had been built with hope. 3 million people had left Earth to start new lives on a world with green skies and purple oceans. They had built cities and farms. They had raised children and buried their dead. They had created a home in the vastness of space. Now they waited to die. The warning had come 12 hours ago. 600 warships were approaching. The colonial militia had exactly 3 patrol boats to defend them. Small ships with small weapons, meant for chasing pirates and rescuing stranded travelers. Against a battle fleet, they would last perhaps 30 seconds. Governor Maria Santos stood in her office, watching the sky. Soon it would be filled with fire. Soon her people would be ash. She had sent the evacuation order, but there was nowhere to go. The transport ships could save maybe 10,000 people. The rest would have to stay and face whatever came. She thought about her, playing in the garden outside. She thought about all the other children on this world, all the futures that would end today. Then her communication system crackled to life. "Colony, this is Admiral of the United Earth Vessel Perseverance. We are 11 hours out. Hold on, help is coming." Santos stared at the speaker. One ship. They were sending one ship against 600. It was insane. It was suicide. It was hope. Stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, surrounded by her crew of 4,000. The ship hummed around her, a living thing made of alien bones and human determination. Every station was manned. Every weapon was ready. Every heart was beating fast. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we are detecting the fleet, 612 vessels. They will reach the colony in 13 hours. We will arrive in 11. 2 hours to prepare. 2 hours to position themselves between the enemy and the people they had sworn to protect." "Open a channel," ordered. "All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this." The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Took a deep breath. She thought about the Galactic Council laughing at their ship. She thought about calling them primitive. She thought about all the species who had looked at humanity and seen nothing but prey. "This is Admiral of the United Earth Vessel Perseverance. Fleet, you are approaching a human colony with hostile intent. Withdraw immediately, or we will respond with overwhelming force." The response came almost instantly. A single word, broadcast on all frequencies so that everyone could hear. "Amusing." Then they opened fire. They were still far away at the edge of weapons range, but they wanted to make a statement. Hundreds of plasma beams lanced through space, bright enough to blind sensors, hot enough to melt steel. They struck the Perseverance like a wave of fire. The ship shook. Alarms screamed. Crew members grabbed their consoles to keep from falling. But the shields held. The reactor, ancient and mysterious, poured power into the defensive screens. The human engineers had not understood how the shields worked. They had simply connected them to the biggest power source they could find and hoped for the best. Sometimes hope was enough. "Return fire," ordered. "Everything we have." The Perseverance responded with fury. 10,000 missiles launched in the first salvo. They were not smart weapons, not elegant guided systems. They were simple rockets with nuclear warheads, built in human factories by human hands. They flew toward the fleet in a swarm so dense that sensors could barely track them all. The point defense systems activated. Lasers swept through space, destroying missiles by the hundreds, but there were too many, far too many. The humans had built their weapons to overwhelm, not to outmaneuver, quantity over quality, stubbornness over elegance. Dozens of missiles got through. Ships exploded. Not many, perhaps 20 in the first exchange. But 20 ships destroyed by one vessel was something that should not have been possible. The fleet hesitated, their perfect formation wavering as commanders tried to understand what was happening. Did not give them time to think. Fire at will, close the distance, get us into the middle of their fleet. Her helmsman stared at her. "Admiral, if we go into the middle of 600 ships, we will be surrounded." "Yes," agreed. "They will be shooting at us from every direction, which means they will also be shooting at each other." The Perseverance surged forward, her hybrid engines screaming with effort. She was not fast. She was not agile. She handled, as one pilot put it, like a pregnant whale trying to dance. But she moved, and she kept moving, and nothing that did could stop her. The battle became chaos. Plasma beams struck the Perseverance from every angle. Her shields flared and flickered. When the shields failed, her hull took the punishment. Human steel, crude and simple, absorbed damage that would have destroyed a ship. Sections were breached. Compartments lost atmosphere. Crew members died at their posts. But other crew members took their places. Engineers crawled through damaged sections, welding patches over holes, rerouting power around destroyed conduits. When systems failed, they bypassed them. When weapons ran out of ammunition, they reloaded from the massive magazines deep in the ship. When computers crashed, they switched to backup systems, then backup backups. The Perseverance was not elegant. She was not sophisticated, but she had been built by people who understood one fundamental truth. In a real fight, the winner was not the one with the best technology. The winner was the one who refused to give up. For 7 hours, the battle raged. They threw everything they had at the human ship. They concentrated fire from dozens of vessels. They launched boarding parties that were cut down in the corridors. They tried to ram her with suicide ships that were destroyed by point defense fire. Nothing worked. And all the while, the Perseverance kept fighting. Missiles launched in endless waves, fired until their barrels glowed red, then cooled and fired again. Point defense cannons swept space clear of enemy fighters and missiles, firing so fast that the barrels had to be replaced 3 times during the battle. War Master watched from his command ship, his hunter's instincts screaming at him. This was wrong. This was impossible. No single ship could withstand such punishment. No crew could keep fighting through such losses. But the humans did not know they were supposed to die. The turning point came in the 6th hour. A lucky shot from a destroyer struck the Perseverance's main communications array. For 15 minutes, the human ship was blind and deaf, unable to coordinate her weapons or receive damage reports. In those 15 minutes, walked through her ship. She walked through corridors filled with smoke and blood. She walked past crew members fighting fires with their bare hands. She walked through medical bays overflowing with wounded, through engineering sections where technicians worked by flashlight, through weapons bays where loaders fed ammunition into magazines until their arms gave out. She saw humanity at its worst and its best, dying and fighting, breaking and enduring. When she returned to the bridge, the communications were back online. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, his voice cracking with exhaustion. Enemy fleet strength is down to 300 ships. They are pulling back. Looked at they were retreating, not routing, not fleeing in panic, but withdrawing in good order. They had had enough. Let them go, she said quietly. We are done here. The Perseverance hung in space above 442b. Her hull was and burned, pitted with impact craters and plasma scoring. 300 of her crew were dead. Another 800 were wounded. 17% of her systems were destroyed beyond repair. But her flag still flew, and on the planet below, 3 million humans looked up at the sky and wept with joy. They had survived. Against all odds, against all logic, against an enemy that should have destroyed them, they had survived. Because one ship, built from garbage and determination, had refused to die. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. One human ship, 600 warships, 312 enemy vessels destroyed or crippled, one colony saved. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The great chamber was filled to capacity, every seat taken, every gallery packed with observers. They had come to see the humans. They had come to understand what had happened at Stand. Ambassador of the hegemony sat in his designated place, his compound eyes fixed on the floor. He had not spoken since the news arrived. He had mocked the human ship. He had called it a monument to inadequacy. Now that monument had done something no vessel had ever accomplished. Ambassador Sarah entered the chamber. She walked slowly, deliberately, letting every species see her. She was tired. She had not slept since the battle, but she walked with the quiet dignity of someone who no longer needed to prove anything. "You summoned us," she said, her voice calm. "We have come." High Chancellor, oldest member of the Council, spoke first. His species had watched the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. They had seen empires born and die. They had seen countless species rise to greatness and fall to nothing. "You fought alone," said. "No allies, no support. One ship against an armada." "Yes." "Why?" considered the question. It was simple, but the answer was not. She thought about standing on the bridge of a ship made of garbage and hope. She thought about rebuilding technology he did not understand with tools he had invented himself. She thought about the 18,000 workers who had spent 3 years transforming a corpse into a fighter. Because we had no choice, she finally said. Because our people were dying, because no one else would help us. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from 100 different species. You told us we were too young, too primitive, too unimportant. You refused us membership in your council. You refused us the right to buy weapons or ships. You watched our colonies burn and did nothing. The chamber was silent. So we did what humans have always done. We looked at what we had and we found a way. We took your garbage, ambassador. We took the ship you threw away because it was no longer perfect, and we made it into something new. She pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic image filled the center of the chamber. It showed the Perseverance before and after the battle. Burned, broken in a dozen places, but alive. You laughed at our ship, you called it crude, you called it primitive, you were right, smiled. But you forgot something important. Crude things can still kill, primitive things can still win, and desperate people will fight with whatever they have, no matter how inadequate it might seem. She turned to face directly. The ambassador did not look up. Your species builds perfect things. When those things are no longer perfect, you abandon them. You have done this for 11,000 years. It is the foundation of your civilization. Paused. But perfection is fragile, ambassador. Perfection breaks under pressure and cannot be repaired. The Perseverance was never perfect. She was held together with welding joints and human stubbornness. When she broke, we fixed her. When she failed, we tried again. When she took damage that should have killed her, she kept fighting. She deactivated the hologram. That is what humans do. We break and we heal. We fall and we get back up. We face impossible odds and we fight anyway, not because we expect to win, but because surrender is not in our nature. High Chancellor leaned forward. What do you want from this council, ambassador? Nothing. The answer surprised everyone. Murmurs filled the chamber. Nothing, repeated. Nothing, confirmed. We did not come here to beg for membership. We did not come to ask for help. We came to tell you something. She stood, her voice carrying to every corner of the great chamber. The collective declared war on humanity. We will fight them with everything we have. We will win or we will die. Either way, we will face our future on our own terms. She began to walk toward the exit, then stopped. But I want you to remember something, all of you. Remember how you laughed at us. Remember how you refused to help us. Remember how you watched our people die and did nothing. Her voice hardened. Because someday you might need help yourselves. Someday one of you might face an enemy you cannot defeat alone. And when that day comes, you will have to ask whether humanity remembers how we were treated in our hour of need. She walked out of the chamber without looking back. The war lasted another 5 years. Humanity built more ships like the Perseverance. They raided more graveyards, salvaged more derelicts, transformed more garbage into weapons. They built hybrid vessels and trained crews and developed tactics that no other species had ever imagined. They lost battles, they lost colonies, they lost millions of lives. But they never surrendered, they never gave up. They kept fighting until the collective finally broke. The Treaty of Perpetual Accord was signed aboard the Perseverance herself, now a museum ship in Earth orbit. Representatives from a dozen species gathered in her corridors, walking the same paths that heroes had walked during the Battle of Stand. Now an old woman with white hair and tired eyes watched the ceremony from the observation deck. Stood beside her, leaning on a cane, his hands no longer steady enough for engineering work. "We did it," he said quietly. "We actually did it." Nodded. Below them, diplomats signed documents that would reshape the galaxy. They had surrendered. The Galactic Council had granted humanity full membership. The hegemony had opened relations. quietly admitting that perhaps they had underestimated the young species from Earth. "Did you ever think we would get here?" asked. Smiled. "No. When I first saw this ship drifting in that graveyard, I thought it was a corpse. I thought we were crazy to even try." She touched the viewport, feeling the cold metal beneath her fingers. "But humans have always been crazy. We have always looked at impossible things and refused to accept that they were impossible." Outside the viewport, Earth hung in the darkness, blue and green and alive, home to billions of people who had survived because one ship had refused to die. "They still talk about us, you know," said the other species. "They still do not quite understand how we won." "They never will," replied. "They built civilizations on perfection and elegance and efficiency. They do not understand what it means to need something so badly that you drag it back from the dead with your bare hands." She turned away from the window. "But that is fine. They do not need to understand. They just need to remember." "Remember what?" Smiled, and for a moment she looked like the young captain who had first stepped aboard a dead ship and seen something more than a corpse. "That humanity does not give up. No matter how broken we are, no matter how hopeless things seem, no matter what the odds say, we keep fighting. We keep surviving. We keep taking the things that others throw away and turning them into something wonderful." She walked toward the exit, pausing at the door. "That is the lesson of the perseverance. Not that we built a great ship, not that we won a great battle. The lesson is simpler than that." "What is it?" Looked back at her friend, her partner, the man who had helped her transform garbage into hope. "Never underestimate what humans can do with things that others have abandoned. Because we do not see garbage, we see potential, we see possibility, we see a future worth fighting for." She walked out, leaving alone with the ship that had saved humanity. Outside, the stars waited, and somewhere in the darkness, human engineers were already looking for the next derelict to salvage, the next corpse to resurrect, the next impossible thing to accomplish. Because that was what humans did. They took the broken things of the universe and made them whole again. Not perfect, never perfect, but alive.